Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today on Passages in Pranayama, the past few weeks I got my schedule thrown off a little bit because I had a little bout of vertigo. So last week I had finished up the Rubaiyat. That was Good Friday, and I wanted to get to the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes of the Sermon on the Mount, of which I usually discuss around Easter. So just a week late. That's all. So whenever we are processing information from these various sources that deal with spirituality, uh, you know, uh, philosophical instruction, we must always take it with an understanding, a deep understanding that our interpretation of it is based on so many factors that it'd be hard to list. Okay. But to kind of drive that point home, your current mood is going to determine its value, its weight, if you will, its value throughout your day, its overall meaning. Right? So your mood will determine, which is why it's so important to read this wisdom literature over and over again, so that we have a good understanding from many different perspectives based on where and how we might be feeling for in that moment. So let me get on with it. I feel like I should begin every single talk like that because if we're not aware of how we are in the moment, then we won't extract the essence, or some of the more important instructions that the author is trying to transmit. So let's move on, John. Let's move on. It's a Okay. So the Beatitudes from the Sermon on the Mount. It's the beginning, basically, and this is where Jesus's followers have gathered to hear him speak. I think that's another important thing to note. Almost no matter which religious text um, you might be studying, there's a possibility that the primary author is not the one who's blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit. It's an interesting way to begin a thing, about spirituality. Blessed are the poor in spirit. We're assuming, right, or at least my interpretation of it is that those who lack, right, a connection to the spirit, they're the ones who should be blessed. Now, okay, so for theirs, right? So theirs, as if possessive, is the kingdom of heaven. So the spirit being the kingdom of heaven, but those poor in spirit, it is possibly instruction, right, for those who have yet to connect to the spirit, are the ones in which we need to help them make that connection. I guess another important thing to note here is that, in Christian doctrine, Jesus is the only one that was and is apparently the only one who is able to achieve the state of Christhood. Right, and in various other religions and philosophical schools, that isn't so, right? So Buddhism, for instance, right, anyone can attain the state of Buddhahood, right? And these are, very similar in nature, right? Where the full realization of the spirit, the soul, has been achieved. So, so even in Christian doctrine, Jesus Christ is the only one who's able to achieve this state. Nonetheless, to teach those to understand that their spirit, to be in touch with their spirit, as my wife always says, you can't unlearn, right, after you've meditated, right? Every little meditation, it all adds up, and you bring a little bit of that back with you, right? If we're teaching people to be mindful and to meditate and work towards a state of transcendence, right? Transcending the body, um, and we fully realize that spirit, then we get in touch. We become more humane. We become more pure of spirit in this kind of lower reality. All right, better move on. The second one: blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who mourn. And last week when I actually did this talk in the studio, I had to bring up elder care, right? Because I think it's such an important part of our own spiritual development. To take care of our elders is something that, it is, well, it's not just selfless service, especially if it's family. We've got it in America, we have, it's not unlike a prison pipeline, which will be discussion for another talk someday, I'm sure. We kind of have this elder pipeline, right? And some of it good, don't get me wrong, right? And some of it not so good, right? Where we have a tendency to forget and not care for those. And I do fully realize that for some people, taking care of someone who is elderly and in great need, that it might be a great task. But you can usually see my mom works or has worked, now she's retired, in convalescence centers. And, her connection with the people who oftentimes visit is so sweet, and you can see, and she will express a lot of time the connection that these people have with their parents. But, beyond that, right, we can't just kind of move our elderly into some other facility, right? It would be great practice for the spirit for us to kind of help guide them towards their last days. And heck, it's like chances are we're going to be able to learn a lot from them. My grandmother, who's still alive, she's 100 years old. My father takes care of her. He's every day, he's over there. She refuses to move, so over her house. Anyway, so blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Right? Mourning, recognizing, it's reminiscent of Dias de los Muertos in kind of the Mexican Christian traditions, right? Where you have this day of remembrance, right? The Day of the Dead, the day in which we remember the generations before us. Okay, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. This one's always, well, a lot of these are quite interesting. They seem to be kind of contradictory in some ways. Blessed are the meek, right? Which is great, obviously, right? We want to lift up those who are maybe in great distress. But it says for they will inherit the earth. Like, why will they not inherit the kingdom of heaven, I wonder? So, is Christ essentially trying to describe that, those on the meekish end, not that, the, you know, inheriting the earth is a bad thing necessarily, but it doesn't quite equate to inheriting heaven. So, is this an ashes to ashes, dust to dust moment for the meek? Again, if we're looking at from like a Sankhya perspective or a Vedantic perspective, then uh, those who might be suffering also have an outlet to transcendence. It doesn't matter, right? If one is up high or down low, we all have an equal chance to achieve that state of transcendence, right? Christhood, if we want to keep in line with what we're discussing today. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And hey, great stuff here, right? Hunger and thirst for righteousness. And of course, we have to be careful not to cross that line of self-righteousness, where the ego plays a huge role in insisting that it might be right? Or that it is right, I should say, not might be right. That's not the way the ego acts, right? So if we're practicing virtue, then, and that's probably the most important phrase here, is the practice of virtues. And we see those, maybe in the Ten Commandments, but maybe not. That second one blows my mind. Anyway, but we see it in various, religion, spiritual practices, disciplines as well. Most notably for maybe this audience, the yamas and yamas, right? That of non-harming, truthfulness, non-stealing, of respect or moderation, as well as non-grasping, non-envy, right? Non-jealousy, right? They're all practices, right? And they're the yamas, and then of course, in the yamas we have cleanliness or purity of mind and body, contentment. We have the practice of austerities. We have the study of scriptures or the study of the self in not just a transcendent state, but the study of one's own behavior, and then finally that act of surrender. They are the niyamas. Okay, so blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. This is a great one, right? Show compassion, right? Show compassion, and it's whenever we're dealing with an expectation, we're bound to be let down. We're bound to be let down because if we're showing mercy, if we're showing compassion, it's not as if we're going to immediately receive that compassion when something comes up. As a matter of fact, sometimes we might feel as though we're being trampled upon. And that's a good possibility. It's more about changing one's mind and going back to one of those yamas. The translation of, it's going to be 241, 242, something like that, of Ashtea. That is the one who practices non-stealing, jewels will shower down, right? So real wealth comes from right, not desiring the wealth of others, right? That's true wealth, right? So even if we're taking it in this like lower reality, and we say, hey, you know what? I don't want to possess this thing. I don't desire to possess this thing. Then the value of the things you have, right? No matter how small they might be, the value of them goes way up, right? The more stuff we have, right, the more value or the more material we desire, the value of things goes down. And in some sense, that's what this is kind of saying here. Blessed are the merciful. for they will be shown mercy. Right? So the practice of being compassionate towards one another, towards others, will give you the tools to feel compassion, even when it is not, directly given, right? Whether it's through words or expressions, actions. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. All right, pure in heart. So this is pretty simple, right? We practice those virtues. We learn to become, well, essentially good people. Good. Right? And the definition of good is based on the virtues in which we practice. And if we're good people, then yes, we, enter the kingdom of heaven. They will see God. We will see God if we are in fact good people. My apologies, because got something in my eye. Okay, two more. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And this is like putting things to action. I love this, right? So we go from 8 to 9, right? Blessed are the pure in heart, we become good. And then, right, as we become good, now we learn to act on, being, God's warriors or so on. We're good people. So therefore, we want to create as much peace as possible, right? So we go from uh, shaping our minds, shaping our behaviors to be good. And from that goodness comes actions. 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs. We have, those who are doing right. And if we, end up getting in trouble for it, hopefully we're not persecuted for doing the right thing, then the outcome may be, right, peace at the end of our days. All right. So here we go. Sit up nice and tall. Close your eyes. Relax your face. Set your hands where they may. You may take Gya Mudra. Ears and shoulders and hips aligned. Of course, with every breathing practice, I want you to be mindful of your breathing rhythm, right? Your capacity for breath. If you find at any time throughout a pranayama practice, today's pretty easy, so it's not a big deal, that you find your own rhythm, right? If you're feeling as if you're gasping for air, just slow things down and relax into your own breath. Right? But today is quite simple, right? Quite simple. It's more or less a meditation that we see well across the board. It is a meditation on the heart, right? We bring the mind to the space of the heart, right? And we breathe deeply into that space, learning to direct the breath into the heart, in and out of the heart, if you will, kind of purifying the heart. So again, relax your face. Right, as we kind of practice pranayama along with this, it's only going to be some deep breathing. I'm going to do a 6 count, right? Inhales and exhales, but I want you to keep your mind on your heart and what that is, right? We practice those virtues that make us good so that we can go out and act like good warriors out in the world. Those peacemakers. Let's inhale and exhale. Breathing into the heart. Inhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Inhale. Exhale. And I want you to keep your mind focused on your heart, the breath moving into the heart. As this is like a mindfulness practice, almost more so than pranayama. Right? What is it the heart represents? Right? How do we make the heart full? Right? Is part of it, of course, is understanding that the ego wants to fight against the purity of the heart. It wants to tell those little white lies. It wants to bolster itself up and explain away any grievances another person might have about your own behaviors. So part of our practice in kind of making the heart full is the practice of humility. As you breathe in, right, you think about things like truthfulness, kindness, right, non-harming, non-jealousy. Purify the heart. Let's move to an exhale. Deep inhale, shoulders rise. Through mouth, exhale, shoulders roll back and down. I want to thank you so much